This video is a continuation from the previous video on lighting. Okay, so we've covered natural lighting, and now we're going to talk about artificial. So artificial is generated from studio lights, flash, artificial lighting in a building, like overhead lights that are built into a building, street lamps. There's a whole bunch of different opportunities to use artificial lighting. And it allows you to be very creative, especially in a situation where there is no natural light. And this scene that you can see here of the woman dancing with the blue light flooding from, she's got a light directly above her, which you can see coming down here. And she has lights that are coming from the side, and they're different colors. When working with artificial light, you can color the light. And there are many different ways to do that as well. This light, this portrait uses 3 different colored lights. There's a light that is pointed directly at her that has a bluish tone, and you can see that light here. There's a light pointed at her from the right that has a golden tone. And then there's a light that's not fully from the back, but is to her, to the right of her, but behind her a little bit. That is this magenta pink that has created this beautiful portrait. And really the key to figuring out where to put the lights is to seat your model, take a rough guess at where you think the light should go, take a shot, look at it, analyze it, and then start moving your lights around until you get what you want. And just keep taking shots. And eventually you'll get the shot you want. And then when you've got the lighting where you want it, then you want to start taking multiple shots and bracketing and playing around with your exposure to make sure you truly have gotten the correct exposure and the correct shot. These 2 photos also are using multiple lights. There's a cyan directly at her, a yellow to her left, and a red to her right. And they have lit her up using something called color gels. It is a transparent piece of plastic or glass, depending on the manufacturer, that you can put over a light that will cause it to cast these colors. There are also other types of lights that Luxley, I actually have the little ones, Luxley lights that you can dial in the different, you have up to 1 million different colors you can dial in on the lights, and it will cast that color onto your subject. Here neon is being used as the artificial light, and it's really creative. Also, they're reflecting this off of, I'm trying to think how they're doing this. There's another piece of plastic or glass in here that is closer to the photographer than the girl, but she's also got on these plastic glasses, and some of the reflections are creating a pattern on her glasses. That's really cool. So neon lights in a city at night are a great source of artificial light. And what's interesting is when you start shooting for reflection, pay very, very close attention to what that is. Take the shot and then zoom in there and see what that is. Because here you can see it says "you need" backwards in his glasses. And that's kind of cool, right? If he had been positioned so that it didn't say anything, it wouldn't be as cool. What's cool is when there's a message. And what might even be cooler is if you could get it to read the right way. It's not going to because it's a reflection, but that would be cool too. So what you see in the reflections matters. But here he has lit up by the city, the blue in the background has lit him up in general. But then this hot pink neon very close to him has become the main light, and the rest of this is sort of fill light. And it's very cool, very clever. Now, I will say the only problem for me with this shot is all this stuff over his head, and the moon over here is distracting. My eye keeps going to this. Yeah, I go right here, and then I go over here and over here. And so I would get rid of all that. I would make sure that there was nothing above his head in that shot. This is really, really cool because this is a light on the background. And then another light on the model. And it's allowed us to create this really interesting high contrast pop. So the brightest light was washed down the background behind her. And then she had a separate light on her. And it created this really clever, colorful scene. Just more different things that you can do with changing the color of the lights. Artificial light can be very subtle. You have a very high-key photo here of Natalie Portman. She's got some pink from this side, a blue light from this side, and a white light down the middle. That has created this. Now, when you're doing a light like this, a light up like this is your main light, direct, right? And then these other lights are they're either further away or you turn down the intensity of them. So all they do is add in a little bit of fill. So this is your brightest light. This is your second brightest light. And then this is your third brightest light. So we're working with 3 lights. This looks like 2 lights, one from this direction and one from this direction. Okay, and you have different light types. Artificial light, sodium, halogen, metal halide, day light, and that's the bulb calls itself day white and cool white. And now, in addition to incandescent bulbs, traditional bulbs, we now have LED bulbs and other types of lights that last longer. But they also have fixed all of these so they come in this wide range of colors. It used to be that the LED lights only came in this really bluish light that people didn't like in their homes. So now they've coated them with a filter that allows them to be warmer lights. But this temperature range is in your natural home. Now, your eye, when you look at the different lighting, for the most part, with some exceptions, but in general, your eye will take in the light and then your brain will filter for the correct exposure in your head. Camera doesn't do that. You will sometimes take a photo and it will have a weirdish blue hue to it. Metal halide will cause, and fluorescence will cause very abnormal green hues. And then the halogens and sodium tend to be very, very sickly yellow, like a jaundice. And so you have to either use a filter on your camera to get rid of that. And there's a lecture coming up on filters. Or you can post-process that to get rid of those colors. Because the camera is going to read the light that it records, and it's not going to adjust the way your brain does. And here's an example. These are sodium halide, and this is this very, very yellow that it creates. But this photo, they made it warm. They turned it orange. It's generally not quite that orange. It's more of a yellowish. And they used it in the fog as beautiful diffuse backlighting, because backlighting always creates this gorgeous outline on your character, on your subject. And then here, these are also sodium halides, but during the day. And so you could see it's that yellowish feel. And so it colors your scene differently, and you may have to make adjustments for it, unless you specifically want those types of light color and you work with them. Ambient light is light that already exists in a scene as either deflected, diffuse light bounced from natural or artificial sources. And it works really well. Here, this beautiful photograph on the right, there is a fan, and I know this just looking at it from having done decades of photography. There is a fan that is blowing her dress. There's one light from above, it's a butterfly light on her, and then there's some ambient light that is being bounced from other directions. And she is holding as still as possible so that this is in perfect focus. And the photographer's got the camera on a tripod, long exposure to capture the movement from the dress rippling in the fan to create these beautiful waves. And the dress itself looks like it's red and yellow, and then there's a green screen behind her, and the light from the sides is kind of, looks like it's bluish over here and pinkish over here. And that's how they, 99% certain, that's how they set that up. In this case, there is a direct light on him from the light directly overhead, but the rest of this is bouncing around the scene. And then the light from these panels is bouncing around the scene so that even in the areas where there isn't direct light, you can still see. And that's what ambient light does. This is ambient light from, the sun is coming up over here, but you can see the opposite side in great detail, which is a result of the light bouncing off the atmosphere and the objects that are getting direct light bouncing, reflecting that light, and it hits here. So what light waves do is they come into a scene and they hit an object directly. And that object will absorb some of the light, the wavelengths, and it will reflect the others. And the light rays that it reflects become the ambient light that then bounces off of it and hits other objects. Okay, and that's why you're able to see on this side even though it doesn't have any direct light on it. This whole scene is lit up by, you know, the bounced light within these sodium halides are hitting the billboard, and then it's bouncing around, and that's why you can see all this. It's as a result of reflected light. Beautiful shot. I love that shot. Sometimes I look at people's photography, I'm like, wow, I wish I had thought of that. But, you know, they did, and you can admire it and love it and come up with your own stuff and be inspired by it, you know? I mean, you don't ever want to copy someone else. It's not fair to them because you don't want anyone to copy you. And I encourage you all not to even try to emulate someone else. Use it as inspiration. There's nothing wrong with that, but definitely do your own thing. Backlighting is when we light from behind the subject. Sometimes the subject is in shadow, but you can use flash or diffuse light to make sure that you can see the subject, but you always get this beautiful outline around your subject when they're backlit. So she's backlit, but she's also lit from the front. And it looks like there's a light inside the umbrella, actually. The light's inside the umbrella casting down, which is very cool. Backlit with the sun. You know, the elephants are sunset. Elephants are walking towards the photographer. And that ambient light is, you know, putting them in focus. Backlighting on flowers is always very cool because most people don't realize that their petals are like skin. You can see through them. So when you backlight flowers like this, you get these really beautiful halos of light, but you also get some really beautiful shapes, you know, negatives that play off positive, negative space as a result of the transparency of the petals. Okay, we're going to stop here and continue in the next video.